Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I got an amazing guest. I'm very privileged. I'm really grateful and very excited to chat with this man because we've got some similarities. We've got some Marvel connections that we'll certainly dive into later. But I'm with Jacob Carlile, 2021 Real Estate Institute of Queensland Rising Star Property Manager of the Year. Bought his first property at 19 years old, member of the Toowoomba Future Leaders Advisory Group with the Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce, and published his first book, The Dynamics of Change. I didn't actually know that until you sent that through to me, man. Published your first book at 21 years old, runs a business, is an incredible human being. I had the absolute privilege of attending his wedding. Was it? Time flies to me. I'm not a good time person. Last year? It was last year, right?
12 months ago, yeah. Well, 14 months ago, actually. Yeah.
And what an experience, man. Your values around family, around business, around life. It's something I really connect with. We do have a bit of a nerd connection as well. We are little Marvel geeks, so we'll probably go off topic a little bit today. But Jacob, man, I'm really grateful. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Louis. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to jump on.
And I guess, as I mentioned before we jumped on, man, I'd just love to know your story. I know bits and pieces, obviously, through your partner and through the conversations that we know that we've had. So, man, for everyone listening or watching this right now, could you give us the story of Jacob, where you've come from to be what you've done? You've already achieved so much, man, and you're probably pretty modest with your list. I know you've done some amazing things outside of that. So, it's man, I'd love to hear your story. So, how did you become who you are today?
Yeah, thanks for the intro, mate. Look, it really starts 24 years ago. I'm a Toowoomba boy, born and bred. So Toowoomba in southeast Queensland is my home. It's also where my business is based. And it's just a part of the world that I absolutely love and adore. So this is where I've been born and raised and have really established myself and my wife Nicole as well. So love this area of the world. I've grown up in my family's real estate business, which is called Hot Property in Toowoomba. So there's residential sales and property management, and commercial sales and property management in the region. We've now grown to the largest independent agency, part of a franchise group in the Toowoomba region, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And at the end of high school, I wasn't really going down the family business path. It wasn't part of Dad's plan for me. It wasn't part of my plan for me. I was going into corporate finance, so did 4 years in stockbroking, financial planning, did my Bachelor of Commerce here at the University of Southern Queensland in Toowoomba. So worked full-time in the stockbroking firm, and then I studied externally, full-time equivalent at night during my lunch break, before work, all your free time, in quotation marks. And then I also worked for the family business, just sort of part-time when I had the chance, and it was just sort of a labour of love that I did for mum and dad's business, doing the marketing for the real estate business. Got to the end of that 4-year degree and that 4-year scholarship with the stockbroking firm, and we're just sort of evaluating where I was going to go, what I was going to do. And Dad said, "Hey, look, I'm ready to finish up in the business. I've actually lined up a buyer for the business, but for some reason I feel I have to offer it to you first. You've got the first right of refusal." We sat down. Maybe it took like 5 minutes. We had a quick chat about the ins and outs, what the numbers looked like for the business, how I was going to buy the business off Dad, or part of the business off Dad. And I went, "Yeah, rightio, let's do it." And that was on the Saturday. And on the Monday, we were down at the bank with our bank manager, having a chat as to how that was going to work. So that was 4 years ago now. And since then, when I bought into the family business, we had 150 properties under management. We had a full team of like 4 people. Now we're managing over 1,200 properties in the Toowoomba region. We've got a team of 19 at the moment. And yeah, we've just hit that largest independent agency in the Toowoomba region, which has been just a whirlwind of a ride. In the middle of that, I've got married. Well, I fell in love. I got married. I've built a house. I've won some incredible awards along the way, and had a lot of fun doing it. And we work incredibly hard, but I think we're both Nicole and myself are at that age where we can just afford to really work our butts off and set ourselves up really well longer term.
Man, what a story. And something I actually wrote down a note that I didn't discuss with you before this, so I might spring this on you. But something I really admire about you, man, is just your level of humility in the way you handle yourself. You're not someone who's out there. I know you are a car person. I know you're into the F1. I know you do appreciate cars, but you don't. I'm literally reading a book now. Let's dive into this topic. I'm reading a book now. It's about Taoism and the Tao Te Ching, which is like a 25-year-old book, and they talk about leadership and what leadership means and the importance of humble leadership. I'd love to know, because man, I didn't know you've gone from 150 to 1,200 properties, and from 4 to 19 team members. Like, that's some significant growth for you're 20. How old are you? 25, 26?
24.
You're 24. So,
Yeah.
man, I'd love to know your take on leadership. So, we'll probably get into money afterwards, but I'd love to know leadership, because I know that has to play a part from going from that many properties to that many team members. So, I'd like to know your take on leadership. What is a great leader? What is great leadership take? What's your leadership style? Just leadership as a whole.
Yeah, I really love leadership. I love being able to lead people. At the end of the day, in our business, I'm solely, well, not solely, because I've got 2 business partners as well, but between the 3 of us, we're responsible for 19 people's livelihoods, their families, their income, whether they can buy groceries this week or not, and that really drives me. The responsibility aspect of leadership is humongous, and being able to have the opportunity to lead a team that manages 1,200 properties. I personally don't manage 1,200 properties. I couldn't even rattle off the addresses. Yeah. I could rattle off a fair few of them. I'm very good with the addresses, but I wouldn't be able to do that and then be in the position to grow wealth that I am at the age I am without that team as well. So it's a harmonious relationship between team and leader. It's not a dictatorship. It can't be a dictatorship, otherwise there's disharmony, and it's not a harmonious relationship. I've done a phenomenal amount of personal and professional development over the last, let's say, 6 to 8 years since leaving high school. I've read hundreds of books, listened to hundreds of hours of podcasts and audio books, been to seminars, invested a lot of money into personal and professional development and into growing into the man that I am today. And that's not just the man in the leadership position and as director of our business. That's in being the husband that I am, being the son that I am, being the business partner that I am, and the brother that I am, and the mate that I am to people as well. So it takes a phenomenal amount of dedication to become the leader that you want to be. And I'm certainly not the leader that I want to be now. And sometimes you lead team meetings or lead conversations with people, and you walk away and go, yeah, I really stuffed that up. Could have done that better for sure. So I think leadership is about the responsibility and understanding that responsibility and appreciating that responsibility that you have as well.
It comes across the way you say that. It's like you're coming from a place of serving. You're there to serve your team. It's like I've heard Gary Vee quote this years ago when I was really big into Gary Vee. Still like a touch of Gary. He's just a bit too much sometimes. But it's like, your team don't work for you. You work for them, and you're there to serve them. So is that I was tying into that. I was just curious. Do you have, like, maybe off the top of your head, some of the principles that you take into leadership, whether it's to have a mindset of serving others, from what you just said, self-development plays a huge part in that. Is there any other maybe principles or just ways you view leadership that people listening who are in the business world are wanting to work on their leadership? Because, like you mentioned really well, it's not just business. It's how you are as a partner, as a husband, how you are as a son, how you are as a family member, a friend, a human being on this planet. So do you have any, I guess, guiding lights or principles or philosophies around leadership that have really served you?
100%. I think you've nailed it. As a leader, you work for your team. It's not the other way around. Your job, or my job every day, coming into the office is to equip the leaders within our business, because everyone is a leader within their own right, I believe, equipping them to be able to lead conversations with tenants and landlords and buyers and sellers, and just other human beings in their day-to-day. So 100%, there's a big responsibility on a leader to equip others and to work for their team. Also, another Gary Vee line that I love is, doing the right thing is always the right thing. We make a lot of decisions day to day, and it's not always a logical, spreadsheet response to everything. Even though I'm, a qualified accountant, and my business partner is a qualified accountant, and we're very numbers savvy, we run a very tight ship from a business perspective. It's not always dollars and cents. Sometimes doing the right thing for someone is going to be the right thing, and whether it means, a couple of team members have to stay back a bit later to work a little bit harder or a little bit longer to get a result for a client, or whether it's myself and Greg and my dad, going out, and we're actually building and fitting out our new office at the moment. So where the labor is doing that, it's certainly not the best use of our time, but it's designing the office and really making it perfect for our team to move across into, our growing team to move across into.
Can you go a little bit deeper into that? That topic, that point really resonates with me. How do you, if you could maybe go a little bit into your inner dialogue, how do you, when you come to it, go to a moment where you've got a decision to make, when the numbers might say one thing, but your intuition is talking to you and you're like, is this the right thing to do? What is the right thing to do, right? And when it's not so black and white and emotions can get involved in that equation, do you have a bit of an internal process or inner dialogue, or just a way that you kind of come to those decisions? Because I think that's actually something I'm very guilty of not always getting right. Sometimes I'm probably too guilty of seeing the best in people and keeping them on too long, and then they're the wrong culture fit. They're just not getting the numbers right, versus someone's numbers aren't matching up, but they're such good fits, and maybe they need a little bit more love, a bit more support, a bit more training. So how do you navigate those decisions between maybe the numbers say one thing, but a bit of human EQ, as Gary would say as well, a bit of emotional intelligence comes into it? How do you navigate those? Because that's something I'm quite curious on.
Yeah, having a good relationship with your gut feel is crucial. Just being really in tune with that. And unfortunately, I think you only develop that by making the wrong decision sometimes. So it's a trial by fire sort of situation. A culture is a massive thing within our business and within our growing team. And the real estate industry typically has a higher turnover of team members. We're very proud to say that we have a lower than average turnover rate compared to other industry peers, which we're very proud of. But it's only due to culture. Being a coach for our team members when they might be underperforming, or they're struggling mentally or emotionally, or they've got a billion other things going on in their life, and work is just at the bottom of their priority list. Being human, we can't expect employees to show up, turn on, and be magnificent every single day. I don't expect anyone to work as hard as we do as business owners, because I don't pay them to. I pay them to show up and do their job, and as long as they do that, happy days. In terms of the guiding principles on a board level, between myself, Greg, my business partner, and my dad, we always say that we will always do what's right for the business, regardless of our personal feelings, emotions, likes or dislikes. We'll always do what's right for the business. And from a culture perspective, that's absolutely fundamental. You don't want to get rid of someone within your business who really upholds your culture, because there might just be another opportunity within the business that you can transition them over to. So we have a great program within our business where nearly everyone who comes into the business starts on reception, and they work their way through to higher roles. And we're now talking to staff about mid-level management and them assuming those roles. So, they appreciate and understand every step of the journey through that. Um, and, we have the flexibility as an independent real estate agency and as a small to medium-sized business to be able to just change things at the click of our fingers when we need to and when we want to. So leaning into that and embracing that is really important.
Man, great answer, man. I think leadership as a whole we could talk for a very long time about, but there's many other facets I'd love to get into
Yeah.
with you about. I guess I'd like to start big picture, then we can sort of chunk down on this one. Is I guess money as a whole. Like it seemed like I didn't realize you have mentioned it to me. You've done additional education and study in finances itself. You're a qualified accountant. You've done other external research and study. Where did the passion for money come from, or interest or fascination with money come from? And then we'll dive into money.
Mm. It probably sounds really tacky, but I actually fell in love with the idea of investment banking after watching Suits.
Oh, cool.
There's a period in, I think it's like season 3 or 4, where Mike Ross leaves the law firm and he goes over and works in an investment bank. And I'm like, oh, what's an investment bank? And I started looking into it. And basically, they just make really big deals, mergers and acquisitions happen. And that's what really piqued my interest. And I hate to say that my love for finance was sparked by a TV show, but it really was. I also think it's a lot to do with our upbringing. Mum and dad would often, in a form of discipline to us, would not, smack us or, ground us or whatever it was. They would actually fine us. So we had a fine system. We were able to make a lot of money from mum and dad through pocket money and doing jobs and working. Only if we worked hard, though. That was a prerequisite. It wasn't just, doing something half-heartedly. It was always, if we worked hard, we were paid accordingly. Yeah. And when we were required to be disciplined, we would be fined. Yeah. So I really grew quite attached to money through that exercise. And I think that's probably what really gave me the money mindset that I have now, as well as being surrounded by some incredible mentors who have successfully built wealth. Yeah. My grandparents are very humble people, and they've built a good amount of wealth that they've retired and they're self-sustaining, which is fantastic. Then going into the stockbroking firm, I really grew to understand the fundamentals of wealth, those who had it, those who didn't, and the differences between the two. And that was a really powerful exercise. And then, just being able to try that for myself. So Dad helped me purchase my first property when I was 19. That was actually a development project. So I realigned the boundary on that property, split it into 2 blocks. And that's one of the blocks is now where I live. So I built the house on there, and then only 2 months ago actually finished the development and sold the other house. And personally, that really set myself in the collar really successfully financially, which is really cool. And now I've got cash from that project that I've been able to put in the stock market and play around with, which is really exciting as well.
Man, it's refreshing and exciting having someone who's so intrigued and interested and passionate about money, because it's such a, well, for a majority of society, taboo. You don't talk about money at the dinner table. Money doesn't grow on trees, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to really tackle this topic. I'll just go head first into it. I want to discuss the difference between property and stocks. I mentioned before we jumped on this podcast, because you seem to be like someone who's very well educated at both. You've got a property business managing over 1,200 of them. You've got a business in property. You've purchased your own property. You've worked at a stockbroking firm. You're a qualified accountant. So you're quite a qualified person to have this conversation with. I guess there's pros and cons to both, and this is my own, I guess, my own interest coming out here, because I've done podcasts and interviews with people who are like, property is the best, and everything about property. Then I've had the opposite, stocks. And I'd like to know, I guess, generally from you, maybe the pros and cons, generally speaking, of both, and then we'll probably tie into like how the everyday listener listening to this can start to progress in whatever, I guess, interests them more. So could you explain to me your understanding on your beliefs around stocks versus property, pros and cons,
Yeah.
And then we'll go a bit further from there.
Yeah. Look, I love both. And I think if you do some Google searching, you'll find quite polarizing views on either or.
Yeah.
People are, as you said, all property or all stocks, and there doesn't seem to be any in between. The successful people that we worked with at the stockbroking and financial planning firm that I worked at for 4 years, the stockbrokers were always stocks, but the clients that were actually really building some fantastic wealth were actually both, which really really intrigued me. My dad has always been both, so I've learned through experience with him that you can do both and you should do both, because it's all about diversification. And I think building wealth is all about diversification, not having all your eggs in one basket. Because over the last 12 months in Southeast Queensland in particular, we've had an awesome property market. People have made a lot of money, which has been great. But on the flip side, we've also had a fantastic stock market, and they don't normally go at once, both at the same time. They normally sort of chop and change, and if you've got money in both, you can successfully be making money regardless of the cycle and the economic climate. The big difference between stocks and property is liquidity and how quickly you can turn those investments into cash, pretty much. So property, obviously there is a market, and depending on the sort of property that you have, some of them can sell within a couple of weeks, some of them take a couple of months, and some of them even take years to sell, because you've really got to have the right buyer and the right conditions and the right sort of property to sell. So, and then stocks, depending on the stock you're in as well, if you're in large companies, BHP, the banks in Australia, or even international companies like Apple and Microsoft, Tesla, those sorts of companies, there's always buyers and there's always sellers in the market. So highly liquid, you can get your cash within 2 days selling shares. But yeah, I really believe that it's about both, and you can't be one-sided, because the cycles will often not align, and you can be making money in one market and losing money in the other, and you net out at the end of the day. And overall, over time, you will have a steady incline in the right direction and build some wealth, build some real wealth long term.
Where would you start if you're, because you mentioned obviously, first question, did you get into stocks before your first purchase? You purchased one when you were 19 years old. Did you have stocks at that time, or were you looking at stocks at that time?
Yeah. Yep. So I actually used stocks to save my deposit for my first property.
Epic. There you go. Didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So for, I guess, the average person listening to this, or just people that are wanting to build wealth, and I actually like to talk a little bit of money versus wealth, because I do believe there is some people don't really understand the difference between the two. Let's define that. What's wealth? Can you explain what is wealth? Because you mentioned it, like you said, some people, your clients at that stock firm, were amassing great levels of wealth, but you didn't say great levels of money. You used the word wealth. So can you just, for the listeners, just define the difference between, say, money or capital and wealth as a whole?
Yeah. So capital is something that you can do something with. It's cash in the bank that you can deploy to purchase assets. That's when you come over into the wealth category. That's assets and liabilities is wealth. So, in the business today, we have, I would call that a component of my wealth is the business assets, as well as my shares and my property. People often put their cars into their wealth category and into their assets line, but they're really not. They sort of sit in a liability category for me, because they're a depreciating asset.
Can you explain that a bit? That's Rich Dad Poor Dad for me. Like assets versus liabilities. Can you explain that? Just and I guess in a disrespectful way, I've had these conversations with like friends and family, and they get a little bit reactive to it. But when you say their house necessarily isn't an asset, or their car isn't an asset, so yeah, can you explain, I guess, the difference between real assets and liabilities?
Yeah. So assets is something that's going to make money for you, but hopefully while you sleep, while you eat, and while you go about your day to day. So it's something that, like an investment property, if we're going to use that as an example, can sit there, return you income. You don't have to do any work associated with that, and it will return you money. So it will return you cash. You can then deploy again put into another property, put into stocks, put into whatever you'd like. With regards to your home and your car, they're items that you use. You get a utility out of them, and that's where they make their return for you. They don't necessarily make their return when you buy and sell them. In saying that, I don't think you should ever lose money on your personal place of residence if you are going to purchase it. If you're losing money on your personal place of residence, that's potentially handing away some of the most money that people throughout their lives can make, because it's tax free when it's your personal place of residence. So yeah, I love that money versus wealth, and when people put their car into their asset category, it really it sort of triggers me a little bit. And then people go, oh yeah, but I've got a rare car. You go, okay, well, a rare car is actually going to potentially sit in between, because if you are actually going to make money out of it, and it's a rare, I know some guys who have some rare Sylvias, and those drag sort of cars, or a classic car or something like that, that can appreciate over time. But normally, to make money out of those, you still have to put a fair bit of work into restoring them. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So to then forward from that question, if someone's wanting to build their wealth, so someone's listening, they may be working hard, maybe started a business, maybe it's just wanting to start to set themselves up with their wealth, where would you start personally? If you say, I just went in and took all your wealth off you, all your money, all your properties, and you were back to a net worth of $0, but you've got the skills and knowledge and everything you've got right now, where would you start?
So that's a really tricky one, starting with $0. Yeah. So I would definitely go out and just find something that I can do 9 to 5 to start making some cash. I'm a very good money saver. I can save and save and save. I saved my first year's worth of wages when I worked at the stockbroking firm, and basically I lived at home. I didn't pay any board or anything like that, because I said to mum and dad, I said, hey, I want to save up for my first property. Will you support that? Will you support me in that? But in doing so, I can't have you charge me any rent, because it's really going to put me on the back foot. And they're agreeable to that, which I'm very lucky and very grateful for. But I would just, if I was starting again, I would just go out and find something somewhere that I could just start to make some cash and getting that cash flow in. And then I know I can save that and survive on the bare minimum. The best time to start investing is yesterday. The second best time to start investing is today. So you can start on a lot of the share trading platforms that you can just download on the App Store. Stake is one that's really good. I use Superhero share trading platform as well, because I'm a bit of a nerd, and that name really sticks out to me. I love to use Superhero for my trading. But they have really low cost investment vehicles. And I would just start buying the market. So buying the general share market through a diversified vehicle. A couple that I really like and are incredibly low cost, they actually cost you nothing if you use a Superhero trading platform to purchase, is VAS, the Vanguard Australian Shares Fund, and VGS, which is the Vanguard Global Shares Fund. And over time, they will just purchase the general stock market, and over time, the stock market in Australia and internationally will generate you a return of 10% per annum on average. So you're going to make, if you put $100 in over the course of 12 months, you'll make $10, which is fantastic and a great return on your investment. So that's where I would start. I would start with the stock market. Same as I did. I did exactly what I just said. I started to buy the market, started to buy some funds that would invest for me, because I didn't have a lot of money. So it's not like I could go out and purchase individual shares in Apple and Google and BHP and National Australia Bank and those sorts of things. So I just bought something that then goes and buys the market generally and profit off that. Then as you start to make a bit more, you can get a bit more creative with it.
Could you touch on a little bit of the mindset around the term that I hear a lot is dollar cost averaging, or just just to challenge people's thinking, because I used to be like that. It's like, oh, it's only $50. Why would I bother investing $50 or $20 or something? I want to wait till I have a heap of money to invest. It's quite an interesting belief system of most people. So just to maybe just share, even like something when I saw you recently for your surprise birthday party, I think 2 weeks ago. And I just had we're just having a little conversation out by near the fire, the pizza oven. And I just asked about shares. How's your investing going? You're like, yeah, great. And taking advantage of the market dropping a bit, but just still doing $100 a week consistently into the market. So could you just touch on the importance of not thinking you've got to, because some people just have this mindset, I'm going to hit it big. I'm going to make $1 million out of nowhere and then invest that, versus invest $20 a week to get that $1 million. So just maybe just touch on that, I guess the mindset and maybe a bit of strategy to help people just to like start to build a bit of momentum and a bit of progress.
Everything that I do with money within our lives, I treat as an allocation of capital decision. So is that money best used in my bank account, or is it going to be best used in my share account, or is it going to be best used being paid off my mortgage, for example? And that's how I make every money decision. And I've made the decision that every week, at least $100 of the pay packet that comes in is going to be best used in the stock market, because I know that I can achieve that 10% per annum return over the longer term. So investing a little bit consistently means that you don't have to fall victim to the ups and downs of the stock market. You can get in at the lows, you can get in the middles, and you can get in the highs. And over time, that will dollar cost average, as you said. Someone's listening who's interested in this, I would just Google the term dollar cost averaging and go to Investopedia, and they'll have a 3 to 4 minute video that you can watch about how to really effectively explain that dollar cost averaging. And over time, you will make money. The statistics show it. Over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that strategy will make you money, hands down. We probably should put on this podcast, Louis, a disclaimer to say that nothing is financial advice, but the data is very clearly showing that.
Yeah, just on that point, guys, just if for any research you're hearing or any advice you get about parenting, about money, about your life, always seek, I guess, in quotation, professional advice. But as well, you've got to make your own decisions. Like, you've got to do your own research, do your own study. Don't just listen to Jacob if you've only met him today on this podcast and go smash all your savings into something just off one thing he says. So definitely take your own education, your own thought process and decision-making process. I've got a couple of curveballs at you. I don't actually know whether we'll dive into it or not. Have you got any thoughts on crypto as a whole?
Crypto, I've really struggled with, because I've seen it make people a lot of money and I've seen it lose people a lot of money. My thought comes back to, and we'll probably get some hate comments on this, crypto is not backed by a physical asset. When you buy gold, you're buying physical gold in a safe somewhere in the world. When you're buying stocks in a company, you're actually buying a slice of a company that's actually generating revenue. Yeah. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Terra, like whatever it is, there's no physical backing. I understand there is a technology backing in the blockchain technology, but I just don't understand it. And that's a big part of my money or my stock market ethos is I don't invest in anything that I don't understand how it makes money.
I know Warren Buffett uses the term your circle of competence, like making sure that you're investing into things that you're actually well educated in, you believe in, you use their products, you understand what they are. So I like that point. Any other thoughts on crypto as a whole?
Crypto, I see a lot of people piling money into it, and I think they should be piling it into the stock market, because if you're going to gamble on crypto, you might as well put some money in the stock market to hedge your bets a little bit. And I know you can make money in the stock market. The data shows that. The data doesn't necessarily back up the crypto investment from my thoughts and what I've seen.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. I thought that would be about the answer from you.
Yeah.
I guess this, I'm not sure if you've looked into this, so we won't go into it if not, but just around, I've been doing a lot of Ray Dalio lately and Tony Robbins talking about the changing world order. We're going through cycles, China becoming more of the superpower of the world. Is that
Mm.
something you've been learning, research? Are you, you've got, I guess, a conversation to be had?
Yeah. So there's two different sorts of research that you do in the stock market. There's macro research and there's micro research. So macro research is when you're analyzing the market as a whole and the economies of the world as a whole. And then micro is when you actually get stuck into the profit and loss of an individual company. I love to spend my time in both.
Yep.
Some people are either or. So macro wise, China is definitely becoming a global player. I think COVID really pushed that back a couple of years, especially with all the bad media that came out around China. And there's still such massive delays on logistics and freight and all this sort of stuff, and that disease hasn't gone away. So it's a risk that became very real very quickly and really turned markets in all sorts of directions. China is definitely becoming more of a global player, and that's something we're going to have to deal with. The United States is not going to control as much of the world's wealth as they once did, and I think investing in companies that have China or Asian exposure is really smart. Investing in Samsung, investing in Alibaba, Tencent, even Starbucks, so American company. Back in, I don't know the numbers at the moment, but I know a couple of years ago, on average, Starbucks were opening one new store per day in China.
Wow.
Which is a crazy number to think about. You're opening a brand new business in a brand new location where you have no established customer base. Every single day you're opening a new store. Wild to think about. So even if you're a bit nervous about investing in those direct Chinese companies like Alibaba or Tencent, you can invest in American companies that are actively investing into China.
How will that affect us we're in Australia, and whoever's listening to this or watching this, how will that affect us? Because sometimes I get confused personally. Like I'll hear like recessions, we probably touch on that soon as well, but changing world order, macroeconomics, and it's like, how does that affect me? Like what's like, say China becomes the global currency, or is that what the world currency?
Yes.
So say that happens, how does that affect me? So I would love to know from you, like how are these big economic changes for people listening? I'd recommend going watching a Ray Dalio video on YouTube. I think it's called The Changing World Order. I think it's called that. And he's got two videos. One's how the economics work, it's a fantastic video as well. And one is about the changing world order and how we go through cycles, etc. But back to the point is, how are those big global changes, such as China becoming the superpower that it's becoming, and the room is that we're about to go into a recession, or maybe we're already in one. How does that affect me right now, or the people listening? How does it affect our listeners right now, and what can they do about it?
Look, I don't think it really does affect our day to day. You got someone who's just working 9 to 5. They order stuff off eBay, they order stuff off just online stores. They're already assisting that Chinese, or they've already assisted that growth of the Chinese economy. But day to day, people talk about recession. Google the amount of times recession appears in the media. It appears in all markets. They talk about recessions in bull markets. They talk about recession in bear markets. They talk about recession, all the time. And it's just fear mongering, and I absolutely hate it. Especially at the moment, everyone's talking about recession. It's scaring off a lot of our clients in the property business, but it's also scaring off people in the stock market. Now's the best time to get your money in the stock market. I think the biggest opportunity is also change. So when I wrote my book, when I turned 21, did a whole bunch of research. Did a whole bunch of research into change management. So the book is called The Dynamics of Change. So, I haven't read it in a year or so, but if I read it now, it's probably already outdated. But the principles behind the stories that I shared in that and some of the research that I did remain true regardless of what the cycle is. So change presents a phenomenal amount of opportunities, and I think jumping on those opportunities is the best practical tip that I can provide, and it's through investing in more global based companies.
I something I generally ask my guest in the expert area of expertise that they're talking about is just daily things, habits, weekly, monthly, yearly, daily routines, or things they can start doing right now for them to start to get ahead in the area that we're talking about. So obviously we're talking about money and wealth right now. So
Mm.
the average listener that's listening to this, working at I guess a normal-ish job, or maybe a small self-employed business, and they're wanting to get their wealth in check. They want to start investing. They want to start learning. They want to start setting themselves up. What are like some things that you do regularly, or things that you would suggest people that can start doing right now on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to start to get ahead financially with their wealth?
Mm. Yep. So I reckon on average every week I would listen to probably 10 to 12 podcasts,
Cool.
because I'm always in the car driving between appointments, always at my desk or at home even, cleaning up around the house, that sort of stuff. I love to listen to things and learn more. So number one thing, the number one investment you can make is in yourself. And Louis, I'm sure you would agree with this, with the phenomenal amount of development that you've done over just the time that I've known you, is investing in yourself and investing in learning more. And you can do it for free. You can jump on the App Store, onto Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, and just start downloading resources to learn from. So you can learn about your money, you learn about business.
Any recommendation, any podcast channels or ones that you subscribe to that you'd recommend in this area of money?
Yeah, I do love the Australian Investors podcast. So that's a great one for Australia. Someone who's wanting something a little bit more sophisticated with their investing, they can listen to the Magellan in the Know podcast. It's run by a fund manager in Australia, who I personally invest in their funds, and they are just some really switched on guys. If you want to subscribe to a great newsletter, I would go to the Wilson Asset Management website and subscribe to their not their podcast, their email newsletter. Really switched on, very clever investors. Also love listening to stuff about Warren Buffett. Reading his annual letter to investors is a really, really interesting read. That's probably the investment side of things. Property side of things, someone who's wanting to get started in property investment, they should read the 7 Steps to Wealth book, or listen to it on audiobook. Simple, quick little read, but fantastic fundamentally, and the principles that are associated with that book stand true regardless of the market.
Who's the author of that book, 7 Steps to Wealth?
I think it's John Fitzgerald, I think his name is, off the top of my head.
Beautiful. And just for anyone, just for some more resource and recommendations, New Money is someone I definitely follow on YouTube in Australia. Breaks down. I like finding people who break down people's stuff. If like for me, like I'm definitely not as educated and I guess equipped in the finances as you are, Jacob. So being able to have someone who is and just kind of learn from them, just kind of the takeaways and the implementations. New Money, I really do enjoy their stuff. And is it Graham Stephan from the US? He does a lot. He does a bit of everything, bit of property, bit of stock, bit of just sort of money management as a whole. So they're two that I would add on to that. But back to your steps, sir. So number one, always be learning, invest into yourself. I absolutely agree with that. What else can we be doing?
Next thing, what you don't track, you can't measure. So actually understanding how much per week you spend and how much per week you save, and minimizing the spend column and maximizing the save column is your key to starting to build wealth.
Can you touch on that? The spend less, because you mentioned it so humbly, as you said, like you went before you purchased your first property. You went and negotiated with mum and dad. Hey, look, I want to save for this, and like you said, you mentioned that you negotiated the free rent, but you also subtly mentioned that you didn't do anything. You like lived. You didn't go out and like spend lavishly. You didn't go buy the new bags or shoes or whatever it is, and you just literally just put that all into investments, all into that property deposit. So can you touch on that just a little bit, maybe a bit more mindset around reducing those expenses? Because you're absolutely right.
I reckon from 18 to 20, I probably spent an average of $50 a week total, anything.
I love it.
I had no loans, I had no rent, I didn't buy food because I lived at home. $50 might have been on average, you go to the movies once a month and you go out for dinner with your friends once a month. That was the extent of it. I didn't go out. I didn't have a lot of friends, to be honest. So it wasn't like I was missing out on stuff. But I just know how to save money, and it's just spending less. And it was to the detriment. It was sure to the detriment of my social life. And I didn't go out and build relationships and meet girls and that sort of thing. Um, but it really made a lot of sense for me to do that from a wealth perspective. And it just comes back to your priorities. And at that stage of my life, building wealth was going to be really important, because the sooner you build wealth, the sooner you can retire. The more money you can make longer term.
Epic, man. Thank you. Step
Mm.
3. So 1, learn, always invest. 2, track all your spending and reduce spending and income, and also reduce spending. Is that a separate step or that same step?
I think it's all the same step. Yeah. So you can do it all in the same spreadsheet. Most online banking systems have tools that you can use. It doesn't have to be something separate you have to set up, and you don't have to be a spreadsheet whiz to work that out. Just start spending less. The next step would be invest yesterday. So invest as soon as possible. And it doesn't have to be much. You can start from $50, $100 a week, just into those diversified share vehicles and investing vehicles that we spoke about earlier. And you can get those diversified vehicles across shares, property, international shares, Australian-based shares. Like there's so many different funds out there that you have access to, that you can get diversification very quickly, and you can start to make money straight away.
Awesome. Any other steps after that?
Keep doing it, and increase the amount that you're investing regularly. So I have a calendar invite in my diary every 3 months to increase whatever I've set up as my regular investment by 10%, which is something that I've just learned from Lewis Mocker, another great resource that I really like. He's very shares over property, doesn't believe in the property side of things, but his investment mindset and the mastery around that is really interesting. So increasing that by 10% every quarter.
I watched this video of how he got broken into at his new house. If you watch that
Yeah,
on Instagram, that was very funny. He's a
very amusing.
The way he teaches is very, very funny.
Yeah.
To start to wrap this up, my friend, I'd love to know for you your vision for the business, the vision for your wealth.
So we had a 5-year goal to be the biggest independent agency in the Toowoomba region. We hit that goal in 2 years.
Wow.
So we've already hit our vision, and it's crazy. So we've had to expand that vision. So we're doing some really cool things within the business now to diversify our business beyond just the property management and the property sales side of things. So we've got a great vision to be the go-to place and the go-to source of advice for property in the Toowoomba region. We're also very nimble with opportunities. So we've been able to achieve that growth because we've acquired 3 other businesses. So we've got a vision to continue to acquire businesses, whether it's in Toowoomba or expanding geographically into other parts of Queensland and other parts of Australia. Personally, I would love to bring more of this sort of money mindset, wealth building steps and tactics, and sharing that journey as I go along with it to more people. So that's myself personally.
A podcast, maybe, sir.
100%. Well, Nicole and I, my wife and I, had a podcast idea called Dollars and Cents, where she would talk about mindset and I would talk about money, and cents would be SENSE. And unfortunately, 6 other people have had that idea. But there's something definitely in the works.
Awesome, man. Man, thank you for your time. This has been an incredible conversation. I know there's so many other topics. Like, I think leadership. I think it's something you're very strong at. I think it's something that you've got a lot of wealth of knowledge to add in there. And then we haven't even touched on Marvel or personal life and enjoying life and balance of life. That's probably a topic I'd love to talk to you about as well. I'd love to have you
Mm.
back in another time, Jake. And man, I guess for anyone that would love to connect with you, reach out with you, whether in Toowoomba looking for some services with their properties, how can they connect with you or with your professional services?
Yep, perfect. So best way to find me is probably on Instagram. My tag is Jacob Carlile, Carlile, JC. And then our business is Hot Property. So if you Google Hot Property Toowoomba, you'll find us. We spend a lot of money on search engine optimization and on the digital strategy. So you should be able to find us pretty easily there. And yeah, just shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on Instagram. Would love to chat more with anyone who's interested about this sort of stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll have many, many chats. I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon as well. And guys, for the listeners, thank you for getting to the end of the podcast. If you got value from it, comment, like, subscribe, but share it with someone. Share this one podcast with someone that you believe would get value from it and improve the quality of their life. Thank you, Jakey. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate.